NGFT's FRAT tool provides an easy-to-use and powerful pre-flight risk analysis application. Many predefined FRATs are ready to be used. But what makes it really stand out for your company's specific use is the management part. Create, edit, and publish your own risk assessments for your crew using the toolbox provided in the backend. So let's dive into this very backend and see how you can easily import prefabricated FRATs or create and edit your own new risk assessments from scratch. First things first. To get started, you'll need an NGFT user account, and also your company must be set up in NGFT's system. Get in touch with us by email for us to provide your access. Flight risk assessments, and WRAS, workplace risk assessments, are identical in their function and behavior, but they are used in different areas and/or by different crew. Everything in this tutorial that refers to FRATs equally applies to WRAS. You may start the creation of new risk assessments from the left sidebar. You'll also find available FRATs. These are the FRATs you already imported or created for your company and will be available. Importable FRATs. List of the FRATs you may import. The same applies for WRAS. They're to be found just below the FRATs. FRATs that have been imported are recognizable after selection by the note that appears above the general setting in the middle column. The button Remove Import removes the imported FRAT from your company FRATs. The middle column represents the FRAT editing view. It shows all the elements of the currently selected FRAT in the same order they appear in the assessment view used by your crew. Items of the multiple choice, tag, and slider type are followed by the modifiers and risk levels. We'll explain these elements in detail later in this tutorial. Groups, items, multiple choice, tag, slider, mitigations, flags, modifiers, risk levels. The right column is the preview pane and shows a functional preview of your FRAT while you're creating and editing it. The complete FRAT logic can be checked easily on one single page. To provide you with a realistic use, the processes described in this guide are based on a single risk assessment example. The goal is to get you to know all aspects and features. Let's create a new FRAT and give it a title. The FRAT's title will be visible to assessment takers. Try to keep it as short as possible, yet as precise as necessary. Revision numbers are used to ensure data consistency for further use in safety management systems or for other evaluation purposes. You wouldn't want to mix up assessment data of FRATs that have been altered in content. The draft status should be maintained as long as you edit and test your FRAT. As soon as you set it to live, it will be available for use by your crew. A group is the container for risk assessment item. Groups can be used to create thematic, chronological, or any other type of section that groups items. The first group of a new FRAT is created automatically. Any group's title appears and is editable only after adding a first item into the group. We'll call the first group pilot just after creating the first multiple choice item in this example. Items are single risk assessment elements that add their risk values to the total risk score, depending on the choices made and the answers given by the FRAT end user, the actual assessment taker. The multiple choice item is the most configurable item. The item heading will appear as the question or subject of the risk element. If set, required will force the user to select an answer, to be able to proceed to the next item. Options are shown to users as selectable answers, and every option has a risk value that, if selected, adds to the total risk score. Number of answers a user can choose from the available options is definable. Flags are explained later in this tutorial. Added mitigations using Add Mitigation Plus inside specific options only triggers the mitigations if the very option is selected. Add Item Mitigation Plus adds mitigations on item level. What activates the mitigations if any option is selected? The tag item is a single choice element that demands a yes or no answer. The selectable answers are also shown to the user as yes and no. The required setting doesn't exist with tags, because they always require to be answered. Flags are explained later in this tutorial. Tag mitigations are only triggered when the answer is yes. Thus it is important to formulate the question accordingly. The slider's value span is defined by a minimum and a maximum value. The user will be able to set the slider anywhere inside this span. The slider's risk value is not defined by the slider value, but by ranges of values that need to be added. Ranges in sliders are similar to options in multiple choice items. Added mitigations using add mitigation plus inside specific range are only triggered if the slider's value lies inside that very range. Ranges define the slider's values that trigger the range-specific risk score value and mitigations. If several ranges are added, be careful not to overlap their value range. Lower ranges will currently remain active even if they have overlapping values with higher ranges. All mitigations added to items, options and/or ranges have an own risk value that, if selected, reduces the total risk score by that very value. Only the mitigations triggered by the user's answers are listed for choice. This list will only be shown to users after they choose to mitigate on the initial risk score evaluation screen. Flags offer a flexible way to modify the risk score by increasing or decreasing it. To create a flag, simply add it by typing the flag name into the corresponding field. Flags can be set for multiple choice options and for tags. Add several flags on the same element simply by separating them with a comma. By selecting or activating the option or tag, every flag it contains is triggered. Flags are used to trigger modifiers, which are explained next. Modifiers are triggered by active flags. When adding a modifier, you define which flags need to be active by typing their name in the field and you define the risk value to add to the risk score. Separate several flags by comma, just as you did when adding flags to elements. If the value added is negative, the risk score is going to be reduced instead. Risk levels are starting at a specified total risk score. Also, risk levels can be used to trigger mitigations. This allows to display specific mitigation measures only for certain risk levels. The max value of the same risk level is either one below the next higher risk level or, if no such higher risk level has been set, the maximum possible total risk score.